Okay, well, welcome everybody. My name is Peter Carfagna. We have Angelin Chang with us today. We're going to have Mark Avsec remotely joining us. We're going to go through the 2 tracks of the 4 courses for the Great Lakes Sports and Entertainment Law Academy for 2015. We're really excited to be offering it. Let me also introduce, if you don't know him already, Ricky Volante, who's going to be our executive assistant again this year. Colton McCardle is going to be one of our teaching assistants for the sports track. Is going to be with us. And a little emphasis on what it was like going through it. Jimmy Gianfagna, also an experienced veteran, as is Ricky of this program. If you go onto our Academy website, you can see who we are, what we have done, what we are doing. And in the interest of time, those of you who are interested in all the entertainment, the music and entertainment track, those are the 2 courses that Angela and Mark start off with. The music, representing musical artist course, and Angelin, of course, many of you know, she teaches here, esteemed and a very accomplished Grammy Award winner in her own right, and we're really thrilled to have her as part of our team on the track that's the music and entertainment track. So in the interest of time, Mark is going to join us by phone. Mark Avsec, there's his bio, and he still is proud of being in Wild Cherry and being part of Play That Funky Music, White Boy. He still talks about that, so I don't know if that means anything to you, but he's quite proud of that. So. Anyway, we'll hear about the music course representing musical artists, and Angelin, go ahead, take it away.
Okay, excellent. So I have Mr. Mark Avsec on the line here. You were just introduced as a great Wild Cherry member, an excellent musician. And so I think it's time to hear about what you do on the legal side and what we'll be doing at the class.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I apologize that I can't be there in person. I really intended to and wanted to, and this was sort of preordained, and the meeting you're attending right now is kind of moved, and I just couldn't move something. So, but I did want to participate, and I know Angelin, my co-professor, will do a good job in filling in the missed areas, and I'm always delighted to work with Professor Nard and Dean Boyce, and especially Peter on this program, because Peter does a great job, and Jim Giuliano doing the sports thing, and they really have inspired us last couple of years to try and take the music up a notch. So let me explain to you kind of what we're doing this year. We're going to be still doing some doctrine, so you're going to learn about music licensing, and I'll come back to that in a second. You'll learn about copyright infringement. We'll discuss the recent cases, the Blurred Line case and the Tom Petty case that was recently in the news with Sam Smith. We'll talk about fair use. I think it's a very important topic in the music industry. We'll talk about record company agreements and trademark rights and publicity. Some of these things overlap with sports law. We'll talk a little bit about termination and transfer and personal management agreements, which are very different than agency agreements, which Peter's class will talk about, very different than sports agency agreements. In terms of licensing, there's a lot of copyright at the heart of music law because it probably is the overriding discipline in music law. And in music licensing, you have different music licensing organizations and different rights in copyright law. There's a public performance right, there's a mechanical license right, there's a sync right, there's a master use right, and different entities. And so we'll talk about those in class, the doctrine but as we do this and as we discuss all these disciplines this year, we're going to try to make our class more of an immersive experience. We're really going to be working with you a lot in terms of getting you involved in drafting agreements, because we're going to do a compilation CD project, so to speak. I'm not sure it's going to be a CD, but it will be some sort of product that will be available for purchase involving many different artists with their masters and their musical compositions, and you all will be involved in dealing with those artists one-on-one. Angelin and I will be your supervising partners on the deal. You'll be drafting the documents and speaking with the artists, and we'll get signed documents, or else we'll be infringers, so we don't want to do that. And then what we're going to do is ultimately have a show. I've talked to Live Nation, probably at the House of Blues, with I think some pretty good action. You'll do some of the live performance deals as well as maybe some sponsorship agreements, and we're going to sort of have a concert featuring some of those artists on the disc, and this is just a fun component to sort of end the course. And we'll have a charity component for a very worthy charity, so it'll be sort of a win-win-win where the Academy is sort of involved in the community, doing something good, and you all learn something from putting on this sort of exercise, and you really will, because once you really realize, oh, we need these rights of publicity before we can do this or that, we need this mechanical license before we can release this song in this compilation. So should be a nice exercise. So thank you for allowing me to do this, Tom.
Well, thank you so much for agreeing to do this.
So Angelin, let's pull up her bio, if we could please. Not to be outdone, a Grammy Award winner right here in front of you, who's going to be co-teaching the music course. There you have it. Boy, it's just an esteemed career, so don't, still concertizing in Europe, Asia, Africa, North and South America. Concert tours has led her to these various venues, still does. And the Grammy Award, let me just brag on you a little bit. First American female, first pianist of Asian heritage to be awarded a Grammy for Best Instrumental Soloist with an Orchestra. So recognized for your sense of poetry and technical brilliance. So we're thrilled to have you be part of our Academy program again this year, Angelin, with Mark co-teaching. And how are you going to add to and never subtract from what he's going to be offering in the music course?
Well, thank you so much, Peter. It's really such an honor and privilege to be working together on this because, as you may or may not know, this is a really unique program. Not just, especially in the Midwest, but not just limited to the Midwest. We have, from what I heard, also students piping in from South Africa who've registered. So it's really an amazing program. One thing that we really do that's very special is, as you heard Mr. Avsec mention, we're taking the practical side of taking you outside just the text. So especially in this year, we're going to be taking you learning the doctrine, learning all the terminology, all the different parameters here, but then really seeing how it applies to the real world. So from the concept of a project, of a composition, of well, what do you do? Is a composition the only type of thing that gets a copyright? No. Well, you'll learn, basically. Okay, so, and how that works. Performance rights, all that. And then work with artists, with the production, all the nitty-gritty behind that, including making a complete product and selling that as well. And then how does it work with, working with a venue? I know Professor Carfagna is also mentioning that, is going to be talking about that, how that works in
sports venues.
Sports venues, that's right. How does it work in other music venues? How does it work for charities? So taking you from zero up into something that professionals even don't get a chance to experience for decades, usually. So you're really going to get an immersive opportunity here that's really hard to come by. So sign up if you haven't.
Yeah. Oh, and how about we're going to have a prom or of sorts?
That's right. So at the very end, it will be a compilation in different artists coming together in actual performance. Hopefully at the House of Blues, most likely at the House of Blues. So how many people are actually interested in the entertainment section? Wow. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Majority of you guys seems like right now. That's fantastic. And so we're going to be doing that, and then if you have some ideas right now as far as bands that you know or other artists or musicians that might be interested in getting involved, because we're actually going to do the recording. So it's a real project, it's a real thing. Feel free to send that along. I'll put my email on the board so I can forward that if I don't know some of the information about registration, right, Ricky? And I'll forward that to Ricky.
It's great.
And Mr. Carfagna here.
Very exciting.
This is very exciting.
So exciting, Angela. This is going to be the best course ever, and you're also going to go to a recording studio. Maybe
Absolutely, that's right. So some of the things that we've done in the past will incorporate. So that's ranging from going to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and talking with a lot of their top people there in legal, but also the recording studio. So how many people have actually gone to a recording studio before? Anybody do music? A couple of you, yeah. And some people haven't. So I'll have to tell you one thing. I am a classically based performer. I'm a classical pianist. I also teach at the music department here. I'm the coordinator of the keyboard area as well as a piano professor, and have a joint appointment here in the law college. I'm also, like Mark Avsec, a very proud alumna of Cleveland Marshall, so I have that in my heart too to bring here. So that's why we really want to make this a really great experience for you all and make it really practical, something that you can get out and really be able to apply. So from the recording studio side, sometimes the recording studios are laid out differently, or there are certain parameters that are different, for example, in the classical side versus the pop, rock. It depends on the genre, actually. And so we're going to be going over different components so that you have a big landscape here, so you know the differences between managers and agents and producers. The word producer, actually the role producer, is very different in classical music as opposed to, let's say, pop or rock. So those are a lot of different things that we'll go over. Go into the studios, go to behind the scenes, go do the music performance, recording, sales, business.
Social hours.
Social hours,
Did we have
too.
the social last year down at Playhouse Square?
We had one social at Playhouse Square, and the other one was at Progressive Theater.
Right, in Classic Park.
Yes. Are we doing the Indians?
Absolutely.
All right. I can't wait.
Great. Well, let's
Thank
thank
you so much.
Angelin for being here. Please do stick around.
I will.
So Craig, Professor Nard is the co-director of this joint venture between Case and Cleveland Marshall College of Law. If you want to scroll down to Craig, unfortunately couldn't be with us, but his reputation precedes him. Senior lecturer at the World Intellectual Property Organization in Torino, Italy, on an annual basis. Among other things, widely published, frequently served, asked to serve as an expert witness, widely published, is the go-to person in the industry for all sorts of law of intellectual property, working on a book for Oxford University Press entitled The Common Law of Patents in the Age of Reform. So we're thrilled to have Craig as our co-director. At the last minute, he had a family thing come up, so he can't join us, but he will be supervising the film and entertainment track, which is the second of the two tracks on the entertainment and music side. So Craig is going to be teaching a week on the intellectual property rights and publicity rights as they would relate to the film and multimedia and media industries generally. And he's going to be co-teaching with, you want to scroll down to, or up or down to, David Shaw. David Shaw, so are you all interested in the entertainment track too? So it would be music, and this would be the one track. Music and the entertainment is one track, but you can also take the sports law track and vice versa. But David, whom you've come to know over the last few years, is a terrifically experienced, again, from the area originally, now general counsel of an independent company called Boogaroo, well, Tarante, yeah, right. But David Eisner is his funder, and he is an expert in all sorts of media and multimedia issues, including, as Angelin was alluding to, I've heard him lecture and liaise with you guys. Does a terrific job on how do you syndicate, how do you create and produce a first-run production for 20th Century Fox or now for Boogaroo. So again, it's the nuts and bolts of how do you get something up, running, and approved and cleared to play it on whatever platform you choose to play it. And he'll be one of the 3 weeks, roughly speaking, of the film and entertainment track. Craig will be the other week, and then Brian Boxay, who's now VP Business Affairs for NBC Entertainment Universal Television in LA, will spend the better part of a week here teaching the rest of the story. So he's been heavily involved with various NBC series Community, Welcome to the Family, also heavily involved with, anybody ever see The Office? One of my favorite shows, so he was heavily involved with that. And he had been with the William Morris Agency. He's also a Clevelander, originally out of Case Western Law School. So he'll be with us to talk about the negotiation of deals with the big houses, the Universal Television, NBC Studio, and NBC Entertainment in the NBC network, given his current position with NBC Entertainment and Universal Television in LA. So again, it'll be an immersive, here's what you do if you're in the industry, here's what I do day to day. Now I'm going to teach you guys how to go ahead and do it. So we're really thrilled to have Trifecta teaching the entertainment. It's embarrassment of riches, and Craig will be overseeing that course in its entirety as well as co-directing the program. So that'll be, and then Ricky, that's going to go, so first class in the morning is going to be yours to accommodate your schedule? Music first? Or film first? Then music, we break for lunch. Oftentimes have guest speakers during lunch, and then the 2 sports tracks will follow. So we're happy to welcome this year, if you want to scroll down, as a new member of our sports track teaching team, Patty Inglis. She is the Executive Vice President and effective General Counsel of the San Francisco 49ers, even though she's a native Clevelander also and graduated from Case Western as well. She was with the DeBartolo Corporation for many years. That's her tie to the DeBartolo family that owns the 49ers out in San Francisco. She essentially commutes. She's based out of Cleveland still, but commutes. She oversees all legal functions, for the 49ers, including the structural and compliance matters for the 49ers, all strategic planning for their ownership team, as well as the construction and operation of the now fully developed Levi Stadium in Santa Clara. So she is going to help us with the drafting course. We have negotiating and drafting sports venue agreements in which we negotiate and draft a lease for a newly built facility. She'll be right on top of that. It transcends sports. It really goes to, well, how do you build a new stadium and how do you draft a lease, a multi-year lease for it? And she'll be with us for the first week for as many days as she can. So that's a great addition to our team. Staying with the drafting course is Jim Giuliano's bio there. Professor Giuliano will be joining us again. He's the managing partner of a local firm. No, we didn't put him up yet. Anyway, Jim will be with us for the rest of that. He's a great experienced sports lawyer, done a lot of work buying and selling sports franchises at the minor league level, and is very active in the sports law community, as am I. Still to this day, we co-counsel on a lot of different matters. So that's the drafting course. We go through, Walter, you and Jimmy and Ricky, we go through, we build a new stadium. We draft a new lease. We take you out to Classic Park. We show you the stadium that we had built from the ground up for the captains out of the Indians Class A affiliate. A $24 million project. We spend a day out there. We watch a game. We take you around, show you the naming rights agreements, and that's the next thing we do for a new stadium. How do you negotiate and draft a naming rights agreement? Then we go to the next level of sponsorship. We have all sorts of study guides. So we're really actively engaged. We have a number of guest speakers who tell us, here's how you do it. Here's how you do a pouring rights agreement. Here's how you do a food and beverage rights agreement would be days 3 to 5. As we get into naming rights, we get into financial services agreements with hospitals and medical service providers, all of which are negotiated and drafted within your groups. So we create subgroups. I'm the team now, and now I'm the sponsor. No, now the subgroup's the sponsor. And you guys used to get into big fights, you especially, sitting right there in your subgroup, but it's simulated and controlled, but meaningful, because we want outcomes, we want clauses, we want explanations for why this particular assignment or anti-assignment clause came out the way it did in this agreement. So we go clause by clause, word by word. Coulter will be with us as one of the TAs, and Ricky. We correct the papers, we give them back, we ask you to do the next draft and the next draft and the next draft so you get it, close to perfect. So this is really, I think, out of all the courses that I offer, the most helpful one to anybody, whether you're interested in sports or not, because maybe I'll be quiet and let you guys speak to it. I mean, I remember you're agonizing with your group right here last year, right, over every word, every clause. Now, I'm leading the witness, but has that been helpful to you in your practice now that you're working at a firm part-time?
Yeah, no, it is. But I was going to say it probably resonates with everyone here, whether you've had, Professor Green or Borden, you've had contracts by now, and it's great. You've got to do it. It's a foundational course for a reason. But between like the arc of contracts and Professors Green, well, you tell me, hide the ball sort of mentality, which is fine. It's nice to get into contractual things in a very practical way, and I don't want to beat that term to death, but it's one thing to learn about contracts in the abstract. It's another thing to draft them and hands-on work on those day in and day out intensively for 3 weeks with the type of supervision and exposure that you're going to have to the professionals that he brings in. So just the value of actually doing the thing that you learn about in your first semester, getting the kind of feedback and structure that you get was just a huge, huge help.
And when you go into practice, I was a litigator for most of my career, still am, now more of a contract drafts person, but litigation comes out of bad drafting. So I made a living off of bad drafting for many years, you know, because you leave those litigation loopholes. You leave them. You don't tighten that clause. And that's really what we teach, is litigation ready, litigation-proof documents, execution-ready documents. Are you ready to hand these clauses to your client and say, there's no internal ambiguity, you know, for a 25-year lease? And that's the challenge that we put you to. And I think you enjoy it. Everybody rises, as Jim said yesterday, Jim Giuliano, who co-teaches. So by the end of the term, what you're giving back to us is pretty good. It's pretty darn good. Okay, so, and we do finish with negotiating and drafting an agreement to hold a concert at a sports venue. We have many of those out at Classic Park. So we give you a very poorly drafted agreement for conducting a sports venue concert, and we ask you to fix it. But at that time, you're ready to tie up all the ambiguities and get rid of all the loopholes. So that's a fun last assignment. Okay, then the other and last part of the sports track is representing the professional athlete. As I said to Calder before we started, it's becoming more and more representing the pre-professional athlete in this area. There's a ton of, anybody a March Madness fan? Anybody know what March Madness is? Okay, so pay to play, should the NCAA amateurs, the O'Bannon case, we study that quite a lot. So how much money will the NCAA make this year in March Madness through the TV and other media rights? Take a guess, close to $1 billion. How much will, and it escalates every year, how much of those monies will come back to the athletes who are participating in March Madness? None, not a dollar. So we study amateurism. We study should players, actually, we're going to flip this, and days 1 and 2 are going to be what used to be days 3 and 4. We're going to amateur eligibility issues, representing the pre-professional athlete. Should the NCAA athlete be paid beyond the grant and aid? Is there further consideration for the use of his publicity rights, his name, image, likeness rights? We look at various scandals. We look at various agents who have gone to jail, who have, actually fought the NCAA law and lost. We look at Northwestern and the unionization efforts. So these, some of these schools, private schools in particular, their athletes have voted to attempt to unionize. So we're going to spend a fair amount of time on the amateur athlete rules. We have a placement in the CSU athletic department where you work with compliance. We also have one that deals with the marketing of the CSU, primarily the basketball team. So we do have some clinical placements for you. They come out of here. We have guest speakers who come to speak to these issues, including John Perry, the athletic director here at CSU, who's very experienced. And then we trace the 4 stages of the professional athlete's career. We go back to the representation agreement, and we get into product endorsement agreements. We have sample agreements. Again, we do the same thing. We're going to draft clauses for a license agreement for a golfer, for a product equipment deal for a golfer, professional golfer. Again, we'll pick selected clauses and we'll negotiate and draft those, and we'll correct those clauses for you as well. We look at case studies in tennis like Maria Sharapova and others. And finally, we end with publicity rights. This is where we'll dovetail with Professor Nard. Lots of interesting stuff going on. Misuse of publicity rights, intellectual property rights of the professional athlete, like Michael Jordan just succeeded against Jewel T. Osco. That's a case we'll look at some length, along with others in the publicity rights context. And again, it's not just rote learning. It's not just us, saying to you, here's what the law is. It's us then looking at hypotheticals and saying, given the state of the law, how should it come out and why? So I think that's getting here to the end. That syllabus for that second course. And we'll have many guest speakers, and I think we'll finish, I want to keep this about 45 minutes, a lot of time for questions. Ricky's put together a little bit of a highlight video that walks you through at least how the course looked last year. So I think you'll find this helpful. It traces the course. And
with that revenue, schools have been spending it on facilities, on coaches, on athletic administrators, but not on students. So the question becomes, how come the students can't share in that in many, many different ways? And it's driven some lawsuits about, is it antitrust to limit the number of scholarships and the amount? Or is there's a movement now at Northwestern to create a union to negotiate? So there's a lot of things happening that is going to mean the bigger power schools will break away and gain more independence.
I think
Let's go through it.
intercollegiate athletics right now is at as transformational a time as any as I can remember in 20 plus years working in it, Peter. And what's qualitatively different, in my opinion, is that really the governance and control is not exclusively with the administrators anymore. I think the judicial challenges that are in motion are as significant as the Supreme Court decision deregulating television. We're talking NCAA Board of Regents level type impact here. So the O'Bannon case related to image, likeness, and ultimately media rights is going to be an important case, but really I think the Kessler lawsuit that you referenced goes to the heart of the collegiate system as it's developed, and unless there's a reset, candidly, back within higher ed, and it goes to exactly what you're saying, recruiting, pre-enrollment is a big part of that, then I think we're looking at a much different world 10 years from now.
Are the Notre Dame number one high school player last year in the country? You played some rookie ball in Arizona last year. How's the transition been for you as you make this next huge step to full season, 140 game A ball?
You go from being a normal high school kid and someone throws a dollar amount at you and you have to, make the decision on whether you're going to go to college or you're going to accept the dollar amount and go live off on your own. And being 18 years old, that's not the easiest process to go through. You have to mature a lot as a young man and really you see life differently. You see, if I do this, what are the repercussions, and if I don't do this, what are people going to think? And just for me to accept the amount of money and come out here and be part of the Cleveland Indians, I feel very greatly honored that I get to represent them every day.
A couple of years there, and I'll never forget when our 2007 team showed up. We had a $1 million pitching rotation. Justin Masterson was in it, and several other highly touted prospects. But when those guys showed up, it was Justin and Michael Bowden, who ended up playing a little bit with the Sox and the Cubs, and a couple other guys. They handled themselves differently, and you could just tell that they were on a different level than the rest of their teammates. And several of their teammates, position guys, ended up making the big leagues too, but they just handled themselves differently. And and even at a young age, I mean, you kind of saw it here with Clint. There's a maturity level there that you don't see with the 25 other guys, and that usually bodes well for them. Whether they know it or not, at least that's what I've seen.
Record. What are the characteristics you look for as a player agent who has his choice?
Yeah, in our business, the relationship that develops between the player and us as the agency it's a very unique relationship, and I think probably transcends a lot of other business relationships. It becomes very personal, and I think the services you offer, obviously, you need to be able to provide all those things, and from legal, marketing, all the way down. But the personal relationship is so important, and so I think when you're looking for new clients, when you're in that recruiting phase, the key is finding people that are the right fit. And players, different athletes, whatever sport it might be, they're looking for an agent that's the right fit for them. And I think the key is, and I've learned this as time has gone on, we want to find the right fit for us too.
And number three, how many years the contract is. And perhaps if there's an option out, the player may have an option out, the team may have an option out, the team may have an option to renew, the player may have an option to renew. But all of that is simply you plugging in that information. Now, obviously, the amount of zeros in the compensation exhibit is very notable. But those contracts are negotiated by my general manager and my assistant general manager. We do not get involved in player contract negotiations, nor do we have to draft those contracts, because the worst player in the league and LeBron James or Kevin Durant, the best player in the league, all have virtually the same contract. 99% of their contracts are identical. The amount of money they make is the only thing, in a material sense, where there's a variance between the worst player and the best player.
Different. As a corporate executive, you can work till you're 65 and even longer. As a professional athlete, I mean, even Brett Favre found out it does end. There's no, career. There's no senior NFL, and so you have to kind of combine, maybe a decade of earning power and savings into what a corporate executive can accomplish over 30 or 40 years. And that's extremely difficult because, we live in a society of wants sometimes versus needs. And athletes fall into that, situation sometimes where it's about the material things. So it's important, you need to educate these guys and have them focus more on the needs. versus the wants, and then living below your means instead of at or above your means because of the salary you make, because when it ends quickly, and it ends fast and sometimes not on your terms. So you need to be prepared for that ultimate, day when it does end.
Talk about it. When LeBron James' then agent, Aaron Goodwin, turned down coverage when he was turning pro, what happened there?
Yeah, I insured LeBron when he was here in Cleveland, and as I do with all of our clients, we offer a comprehensive simplification of their insurance program. And when LeBron was just getting out of high school, I was well aware of what the possibilities were for him, obviously, which came to fruition. And unfortunately, his agent declined an umbrella policy, which is an excess liability policy to protect him from lawsuits, et cetera, things like that. Unfortunately, his agent declined the coverage, and at that time I just said, if it's something you're not going to allow me to do to protect your client properly, I'd prefer to walk away from that. Needless to say, he was very shocked by that. How can you walk away from LeBron? I said, it's not a problem. It's an integrity issue for me. I'm a consultant just like a lawyer would be or a doctor or anything like that, so we need to protect your client properly. So he decided not to get the umbrella. Ironically, when you look at it now, it's kind of silly to even think about something like that, and I decided to drop him as a client.
So you became famous for the person who fired LeBron.
Exactly right, exactly right.
Well done.
As you're doing contracts, there's 2 or 3 very, very important clauses within a golfer's club equipment contract, and the suitability clause is very, very important because if you can't play the equipment, your career is derailed. So you have to have the flexibility to move in and out of a contract if you can't play the equipment. Anyway, at that point, we were really curious to see what the tour really knew. So all VJ wanted to do was 2 things. He had to sue the tour because he's trying to help the other players. He sued the tour, so this wouldn't happen to the other players. So he sued the tour. This has been dragged on for a long time. They finally opened up the case in November. A judge heard it, dropped 10 of the charges, but allowed 1 to go through. And it was an important one because it allowed VJ's team to go into discovery and see what the tour had on other players. It's very well known that there's 3 or 4 other very high-profile players that have been suspended for drug charges that the tour has treated differently. And that's all that VJ's fight is for, is I'm going to fight this, and he's footed all his own legal bills. He's going to fight this because he thinks the tour did him wrong by not helping him, and 2, they've treated him differently than the other players who have also had drug charges.
Here comes this little girl. She was 9 years old, just turned 9 years old. Her knees were bigger than her legs. I mean, they had like little bumpy knees. And, long blonde hair, very direct, way about her. And I said to her, nice to meet you. What would you like to do? She said, I want to become the best tennis player in the world, which I hear sometimes, but never with this kind of intense kind of, focus. And so I said to her, why don't you just hit the ball for 10 minutes and we'll take a look. And needless to say, about 30 minutes later, she'd probably missed 2 balls. And I mean, she just never missed. I mean, it went on from 9 until she was 16 years old, just turning, and then she won Wimbledon. Wow. And suddenly she went from, and that was the beginning of Maria. And she just got to the finals of the French Open about an hour ago. So she got a chance to win. Yeah, she got a chance to win again. And that was a great story of, taking a client all the way from the beginning through the academy system to the top level of the pros.
And my apologies for not being there. I wish I was able to make it. But let me say a few words about the entertainment hall course. There will be 3 professors, 2 of whom are very active and have great experience in the television and movie business in Los Angeles. The first week will be taught by David Shaw, who works very closely with Michael Eisner and his group of companies in media and television. And David is the general counsel, but there's also extensive experience as an attorney with NBC and Fremantle. He's been in the business for some time. He will begin the first week by distinguishing among the various Hollywood players, studios, network, cable, pay-per-view. What is the difference among them? How do they operate? Just to sort of set the stage for how the entire industry, particularly in TV, is structured. And then he'll take you through clearance work. And this is really what attorneys do in good part in this particular business, that all of the clearance work and freedom to operate agreements and negotiations that have to happen so a particular TV show, for instance, can make it onto the air. Who gets paid? What do the licenses look like? Who are the various players, producers, writers, artists, and talent? And so that will take up the rest of the week. Then I will join you and take you through a short but substantive journey in the importance of copyright, and the right of publicity will be the bulk of that, in addition to copyrights. And Professor Carfagna, of course, will take you through some of the right of publicity as well. But in entertainment, it is exceedingly important, the name and likeness and commercial aspects that one has in their name and likeness. And then the final week will be taught by a gentleman by the name of Ryan Boxgay, who's Vice President of Business Affairs for NBC Universal. Ryan is very active on the television side, and he'll spend 1 week with you discussing A to Z. How does a television show make it onto the air? Someone comes up with an idea. He'll trace that original idea all the way to the airing of it and everything in between, to sort of walk you through that. Very heavy on drafting, very heavy on contracts, teamwork, simulations, very hands-on. So it's a 3-week whirlwind, but it'll prove, I think, to be really quite good and exciting.
Ricky, you want to say just the last couple of words, how you coordinate everything?
Yeah, I guess if you have any questions after this, let me know. Most of you probably have my personal email. I sent out the reminder for this. As far as the course goes, it's the most practical experience you're going to have in law school. I believe last year's bar actually had a contract drafting question on it, and several of the students said that they passed it with flying colors because of this course. So it will have long-reaching effects beyond just sports and entertainment.